Live from WTOC, the Southeast news leader. The News Now starts on WTOC Plus.
Welcome to The News on WTOC Plus. I'm digital anchor Jude Binkley. The community of Bloomingdale is still shaken after 17-year-old Antonio Thornton Jr. was shot and killed outside an apartment complex last Sunday. A GoFundMe has now been set up to help the family heal during this time. Now, this was the scene on December 14th. Bloomingdale investigators got a 911 call that a body was found outside and that he'd been shot. Antonio Thornton Jr.'s family calls him TJ. He was an honor student at Archer High. He played basketball and was involved in the church. He also helped run his mother's business. WTOC spoke to her after losing her son.
He planned on going to school to be an engineer. And now my baby can't walk across the stage. He can't go to school. He's not going to get married. I'm never going to hear my baby again. I call him every day.
We are working to learn more about what led up to that deadly shooting. You can find the GoFundMe on our website. It's WTOC.com, which has raised nearly $4,400 now. TJ's high school, Archer High, posted this tribute to him on their school's page, saying, "Our class is carrying a heavy heart. Antonio's absence is already felt in the halls, in the classrooms, and by everyone who knew him. Even though he won't be here on graduation, he will always be part of our class." Well, we do have some developing state news this morning. Inmates are missing from the DeKalb County Jail. DeKalb police say they're assisting in an active search for 3 missing inmates this morning. The search began in the early morning hours. The entrances and exits to the jail were completely closed off, and the perimeter of the jail was entirely surrounded by law enforcement vehicles. Now, what we don't know is whether the 3 inmates are missing in the DeKalb County Jail or if they escaped. Also, no word yet on if the missing inmates pose any threat to the public. But again, DeKalb police did confirm that they are helping to search for 3 missing inmates this morning. Turning now to health news, excuse me about that. Starting today, St. Joseph's Candler will enact visitor restrictions due to the increasing number of flu cases in the region. Now, the visitor restrictions affect all facilities, including the 5 you see on your screen. Here's what visitor restrictions actually mean. If visitors have not been vaccinated this season for the flu, or if they have any symptoms of respiratory illness, then they will be asked to wear a mask. Those under the age of 18 are not permitted to visit any patients at St. Joseph's Candler. And if anyone planning to visit the facilities feels sick or has symptoms, they're asked to not visit with patients. And speaking of the flu, cases of the flu are rising across the country. The CDC reports more than 4 million cases so far this season. There's also been 1,900 deaths in the U.S. alone, including 3 children. Doctors and the CDC say the best protection is to get the flu vaccine, but a Johns Hopkins University professor says this year the shot may not be enough because of the dominant strain causing the surge.
It has mutations that may allow it to evade some, but not all, of the influenza vaccine-induced protection.
Doctors say people older than 65, children, and those with underlying conditions are particularly vulnerable, especially with millions of people traveling this week for the holidays. In state news, Georgia's Public Service Commission unanimously approved an upgrade to accommodate data centers across the state. It's a 10-gigawatt boost to Georgia's grid, or enough to power roughly 9 million homes. However, not everyone is happy about it. Justin Berger with our sister station spoke with one commissioner-elect who says he's skeptical about the vote.
All in favor, of adopting R1, say aye. Aye.
$16 billion for Georgia Power.
This is far larger than anything we've ever done in the state's history in terms of power. And it's an incredibly important decision that was rushed and not fully considered.
Democrat Peter Hubbard starts his term on January 1st, joining the commission responsible for regulating utilities like Georgia Power. Hubbard, one of 2 Democrats voted into the commission this past November. It's a big change for the board that's currently all Republicans.
We had, again, 2 lame duck commissioners who we're handed a defeat, and the voters spoke, and they need to be heard. And so by pushing this through just days before myself and Dr. Johnson are to take our seats on the commission, it's really a slap in the face to the ratepayers.
I think this is a great thing for Georgia. Georgia is growing, and now Georgia Power is approved to go meet the demand of Georgia.
The PSC says they're freezing power bill rate increases until 2028. Georgia Power says customers and small businesses will not bear the financial brunt of new data center developments. Hubbard does not agree. He says the current grid could have been used more efficiently. He believes costs will rise to $50 or $60 billion once you factor in future construction, fuel, and operational expenses.
This was an attempt, in my view, to lock in a long-term solution for Georgia that is going to be more costly and more polluting than we otherwise could have.
Georgia is a great state to do business in, and that's why they're coming here. And the fact of the matter is we're just doing our job and make sure that we can serve them.
And continuing coverage, an Augusta man is still missing off the Georgia coast after a body was found on Friday. The Coast Guard, along with the McIntosh County Fire Department, are off the Sapelo Sound coast, continuing to search for 50-year-old Roman Waldera, seen in these pictures here, as well as John Strickland. We are still working to learn the identity of that body that was found last week. Waldera's daughter says she spoke to her father for the last time that morning before he went out fishing. The Coast Guard says if anyone has information on the disappearance, to call them. They're also saying crews not part of the official search can create unsafe conditions and hinder response efforts. Well, this morning, the Trump administration is advancing one fight and pushing back against another. Lawmakers are demanding the DOJ explain why it didn't release all the Epstein-related files by the Friday deadline. Meanwhile, the administration is ratcheting up pressure on Venezuela after seizing a second oil tanker in the Caribbean. Their sights now set on a third. CBS News' Jared Hill has the details.
Off the coast of Venezuela, the U.S. Coast Guard is now in active pursuit of a third oil tanker. This after seizing what the White House calls a second sanctioned vessel early Saturday.
This is another ship that was basically operating in the black market.
Venezuela called the operation a serious act of piracy. The White House accuses both vessels of evading sanctions as it ramps up its pressure campaign on dictator Nicolas Maduro. It follows the seizure nearly 2 weeks ago of another oil tanker, the Skipper. Last week, the president announced a full blockade of sanctioned vessels traveling in and out of Venezuela.
Not going to let anybody going through that shouldn't be going through.
Meanwhile, lawmakers are raising questions about the Justice Department's release of files linked to well-connected convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Starting Friday, the DOJ uploaded thousands of heavily redacted records to its website, including photos and contact lists. But over the weekend, more than a dozen files were removed without explanation. A CBS News review found that includes an image that appears to show a framed picture of President Trump. The image was later reposted.
It has nothing to do with President Trump. If there are survivors in any of the photos, we will redact them.
The two sponsors of the law slammed at the DOJ Sunday for not releasing all files as the law requires by last Friday.
This was a slap in the face of survivors.
They're flouting the spirit and the letter of the law.
They're now working to rally support in the House for inherent contempt charges against Attorney General Pam Bondi. Jared Hill, CBS News.
Well, Friday was the final day of work in 2025 for our nation's Congress, and ahead of the holiday recess, South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace is reintroducing legislation she claims will strengthen the nation's fishing industry while protecting Americans from foreign competitors. The Protect Americans Fishery Act of 2025 expands what a so-called fishery dispatcher to include harm to the economy caused by foreign actors. That includes market distortion, price gouging, and disruptive harvests. It would also direct the Commerce Department to investigate claims of forced labor and predatory pricing. Our sister station spoke to Representative Mace about why this bill is now needed.
This is a big deal for a lot of reasons because we want U.S. companies and restaurants to buy American-made, particularly South Carolina-made shrimp and fish. We want to protect the way of life in commercial fisheries, fishermen, and the shrimping industry here. This does that.
While the legislation won't be debated before the end of the year, it will be on the docket when Congress returns in January. All right, here's an interesting story. It turns out being on the spectrum might not just apply to people. A British scientist says that dogs can experience a form of autism, even though veterinarians won't formally diagnose it. CBS's Tina Kraus has the story.
Animal scientist Jacqueline Boyd has a full house with 6 energetic Cocker Spaniels at her feet.
This is Miss Mirabelle Moon.
Hello. She says her pets give her a front row seat to the latest scientific conversation, neurodiversity in dogs.
There's good evidence of biological signatures of neurodiversity in different species, and particularly in dogs.
Dr. Boyd says our faithful companions can have structural and chemical differences in their brains similar to people diagnosed with autism.
They still have the same emotional reaction to the world, similar emotional states. It's recognizing that commonality.
Boyd suspects she has ADHD herself.
As an academic, I can hyper-focus intensely, and I very much see this in my spaniels as well.
While there's no formal diagnosis for autism or ADHD in dogs, vets often call it canine dysfunctional behavior, which is sometimes treated with medication, but more often a trainer.
And I think when we see the parallels in the way that our dogs are, it just becomes a lot easier to accept ourselves.
Natasha Price and her 2 kids, Izzy and Benji, are all neurodiverse and think their dogs are too.
They just act very much like us. They get zoomies. My son, we joke a lot that he and his dog Olive are really, really similar.
Does it help us bond with our pet more to know if they're neurodiverse?
It helps us actually improve their ability to bond with us also, because they're more likely to feel safe and confident.
Perhaps making the ride through life together a little smoother. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
And finally, Christmas is this week, just a few days away, believe it or not, and Rincon is getting into the holiday spirit. The City of Rincon's Christmas Market is open, featuring ice skating, live music, local vendors, and food trucks, my personal favorite. The event is free and open to everyone, bringing the community together for some festive memories.
I started doing the Christmas market last December, and I am back this year. The advertisement for the market itself has been phenomenal, and also the turnout has been amazing. It's a free entry for all, and they do have ice skating, reindeer games, and milk and cookies with Santa.
And don't forget to stop by the market on New Year's Eve as well. They'll be having live music from 2 to 10 p.m. And with that, we are going to wrap things up here for the news on WTOC Plus. We appreciate you spending part of your morning with us. We'll be back in just about 45 minutes with another round of stories, as well as a look at your forecast for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So join us at 11 o'clock for that. And in the meantime, you can always head on over to our website to catch the latest updates at WTOC.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll now join Local News Live in progress.